The 14th year of Chenghua. Chapter 124. A different attitudes towards him. Apart from the minor disharmonious element that was Su Bin, the welcoming feast was generally considered joyful between the host and his guests. Due to Magistrate Fan's directions, the gentry outside did not dare to come in and bother them rashly, each going their own way after they were finished eating. Tang Fan and the rest at the main table was especially riled up because of the drinking games adding to the liveliness, and when the banquet was over, each of them were a little tipsy. Magistrate Fan personally helped Tang Fan onto a carriage, then instructed the driver to take Mr. Ambassador back to the post house. Mr. Magistrate lowering himself to speak to him made the driver unspeakably giddy, nodding and bowing over and over again in agreement. Tang Fan wasn't actually that terribly drunk, he had just used that excuse to end the banquet early. Once on the carriage, he released his hold on Lu Lingzi, and his slightly dulled eyes resumed their clarity. Yuking, before he gets too far, catch up with Magistrate Ji's litter and request that he go to the post house. I want to see him. Didn't you just chat a lot with him at the banquet? Why do you want to chat more? Tang Fan bopped him on his skull. Those were just social pleasantries. I have other, official things I need to ask him about. Lu Lingzi was a little reluctant at heart, but he couldn't say no, obliged to jump out of the carriage and run to call over that someone. Not long afterwards, he brought Ji Min over. Tang Fan lifted the carriage curtain, smiling at the latter. Zimming, if you find it agreeable, how about you rest at the post house tonight? We've met again after such a long time. I have a lot I want to say to you. Ji Min smiled back. What a coincidence. I also have a lot I want to say to you, sir. Can your carriage squeeze one more person onto it? He beckoned him over. It could accommodate two more, let alone one. Get on, quick. We just drank wine, be careful not to catch a cold from the wind. Ji Min wasn't going to play coy, bending over to board the carriage while holding Tang Fan's hand. Magistrate Fan had done all he could to curry favor with Tang Fan. The carriage was well prepared in every aspect, specifically in order to defend against bumps. It was padded with 3 layers of thick cotton cushion, and because it was currently summer, those cushions had a bamboo mat laid out atop them. People seated atop them would not feel uncomfortable when the carriage encountered bumps on the road. It was also very spacious inside, with more than enough room for a full-grown man to lay down in. Fitting Ji Min in was not hard at all. Tang Fan shot a look right at Lu Lingzi, who was sitting outside with the driver, and questioned, why are you sitting there and not getting in here? Lu Lingzi had thought that with Ji Min here, Brother Tang would definitely want to whisper secrets to him. Instead of waiting to be driven away for being tactless, he simply let them be on their own. He didn't expect that Tang Fan was expecting him to sit with them inside. After a moment of being stunned, he was immediately happy again. Agreeing verbally, he quickly turned around and nimbly darted into the carriage. You're from a martial household, young Master Lu? Ji Min asked with a smile. Not at all. I only exchanged some punches with my elders in my childhood to strengthen myself and keep fit. You are both intelligent and physically talented, a dual threat with both martial and literary skills. Will you take the literary exams, or the martial exams someday? Ji Min joked. Lu Lingzi lowered his head and smiled, hiding half of himself behind Tang Fan, as if somewhat bashful. Despite being aware that this wasn't his personality, Tang Fan didn't expose him and instead helped speak for him. Yuking is a friend of mine. He's young and often mischievous. His elders asked me to take him out and see the world. I see him as a little brother. His implication being that Lu Lingzi was no outsider. I haven't seen you for a few years, yet you're the same as ever, Runking. Always making friends easily. Ji Min said ruefully. Tang Fan laughed. You've overpraised me, Zimming. Since we're friends, we must treat each other with honesty. Speaking of which, you and I haven't seen each other for 5 or 6 years, right? The other nodded. It's been over 5 years since I left the capital. Without those other people around, Tang Fan was able to size the man up naturally. Ji Min had long gotten rid of the gloom and upset he had back in the capital. Despite being a few years older than him, he looked not so different from before, the hairs at his temples black and rich with luster. Also, those officials' robes themselves had an immense effect once worn, the allure of authority would imperceptibly make one look younger. It looks like Jiangxi's resources have kept you well. After coming here, you're more energetic than I've ever seen you. Tang Fan said with a smile. Ji Min laughed, not avoiding anything. Honestly, I had a lot to do. Once you get busy, you don't have time to think of anything. Before this, I failed the exams repeatedly and it was easy to let it get me down, always feeling that this was disgraceful, that I was a disappointment to myself. However, I've seen and heard so many things now. When I think of the past, it practically seems like I was having a pipe dream. It was very shameful. I don't know if Brother Yukiao and the rest still remember me, but next time I go to the capital to relay my duties, if they're still there, I'll have to drop by and apologize. Of course they remember. Weren't you in a bad mood then, too? Anyone could understand that, and if they were in your place, their mood wouldn't have been any better. Luck is also quite important in exams. We were simply luckier to get a step ahead of you. If you go over now and they hear of it, they'll definitely be happy for you. Ji Min held in his laughter. You still speak so? Before he could finish, the carriage jolted hard, then came to an abrupt stop, succeeded by horses neighing outside. Their cabin swayed harshly, causing them all to hold onto its walls for stability. Sir, don't come out. Young Master Lu, protect him. Shi Ming shouted from outside. What happened? Ji Min asked, alarmed. There was no need for Shi Ming to give a special explanation, really. Lu Lingzi had already drawn his sword, gripping it tightly while vigilantly listening to the commotion outside. The sound of blades clashing was heard outside, the intermittent voices of Shi Ming's group coming through. Damn bandits! You dare to try assassinating us in the middle of street. Leave your names if you're so brave. Their opponents didn't answer them, naturally. Judging from the sounds Tang Fan's group was hearing, the brawl outside seemed to be rather fierce. Tang Fan was still collected though, even having the spare leisure to console Ji Min. Don't you worry, Ziming. Shi Ming and them are enough to handle this. Despite saying so, at heart, he couldn't help but furrow his brow. It needed to be known that Shi Ming's group of 4 were all former elites of the Western Depot. With how Wang Ji was, he would have certainly found it beneath him to send him mediocre people. Even Lu Lingzi had said that if the 4 attacked him together, he probably wouldn't get many moves off by himself. However, as time passed slowly, the fighting outside held no hints of stopping, the metal-on-metal contact turning all the more intense as a raging tempest. At this time, night's curtain had since dropped. Luling County was not considered a small area, but after nightfall, there certainly wouldn't be anyone on the streets, apart from night watchmen or patrolling soldiers. The noise here was so great, patrolling soldiers rushed overhearing it, only to see a carriage stopped in the street and 2 unknown sides were locked in a fervent fight to the death, their momentum unrelenting, when given a visual estimate. Beside the carriage laid a few figures, seeing their outfits, those were not only the driver but bailiffs of the county bureau. As soon as the soldiers saw that, they knew that there had to be a certain official seated in the carriage. They exchanged looks, not daring to openly fall back and also not daring to step forward and mix in with the fight. What they did dare to do was, while having someone go request help, shout out a bluff. Who dares to fight here? Government soldiers will surely arrive. Quickly put your weapons down and surrender. The ambushers appeared to be dead set on attacking the carriage, their moves vicious and without mercy. The soldiers' shouts did not impede them whatsoever, their focus remained placed upon Shi Ming's group. Right then, a call came from within the carriage. "I am Luling's magistrate, Ji Ming. The Imperial ambassador is also in the carriage with me. Why are you all not rushing back to report this?" Hearing that, the soldiers were promptly so frightened, their souls flew out. Luling County was the center of Jian Prefecture's governance, making its people more informed than other areas. They knew that an imperial ambassador had come to Jian to investigate the case of the imperial exams, yet he had encountered assassins the second he had reached the bounds of Luling County. If their superiors looked for someone to blame, they would be the first people out of luck. They exchanged looks again, immediately too afraid to sit by and watch as before. They had to brace themselves in slowly approaching the carriage, fearing that with a moment of inattention, they would turn into cannon fodder like those unlucky devils laying on the ground. Even so, with experts battling, how could they have room to intervene? There were 8 ambushers. Shi Ming's group of 4 had separated to surround the carriage in 4 directions, 1 on 2, it was hard to contend with. Seeing and hearing the noise outside getting all the fiercer while reinforcements were slow to come, Lu Lingzi couldn't sit still in the carriage anymore. He said to Tang Fan, "Brother Tang, I'll go out and help," then raised his sword, lifted the curtain, and leapt out. With him joining in, the pressure on Shi Ming's group immediately lightened, but the situation was still not far from hopeful. Lu Lingzi said nothing. He had learned from the temple and had traveled the land in the past, making his real combat experience nothing shallow. Shi Ming's group were also first-class experts, yet 5 people like them still couldn't match the opponent. The 8 black-clothed, face-covered people had come from parts unknown. They were very vicious and trying to take lives at first blow. Shi Ming's group had been caught off guard and was nearly suppressed, but they knew that those in the carriage had no strength to resist, so they had to defend the carriage's protective line with all their might, not allowing their foes to break through. For Tang Fan and Ji Min inside the carriage, seconds practically passed like years. To not make trouble for Shi Ming and the rest, the 2 didn't even poke their heads out to survey the battle circumstances, only staying right where they were, looking at each other. From the very start of his travels back in the day, Tang Fan had experienced an unknown amount of dangers. This present moment didn't count as the most critical, so he was calm on the surface, though his brow was creased in worry for Lu Lingzi and the rest of his group's safety. Ji Min refused to show his nervousness before Tang Fan. In spite of his slightly pale face, he kept calm, with only his fists clenched tight. "Don't worry. Yuking and the rest are very skilled, it'll be okay," Tang Fan then comforted him. Ji Min forced out a smile, which was immediately followed by a tight furrowing of his brow. "Luling County has been very peaceful before this. I've never heard of any bandits. Why is there an assassination attempt on your heel when you got here on your toes? Did you encounter one in Suzhou, too?" Tang Fan shook his head. "I didn't." "Then, could it have something to do with the case you're investigating?" the other guessed. Tang Fan's heart jumped. If there was anyone who didn't want him to come and investigate the most, that could only be Shen Kengxiu, without a doubt. However, how could he, a consul of education, have gotten into contact with these assassins outside? Was there some hidden story to the case? Right as his mind was turning, the sound of horseshoes seemed to come from far away, accompanied by the rising clamor of people's voices. And, those patrolling soldiers that had only been able to watch helplessly nearby saw torches draw near, becoming overjoyed. Reinforcements were finally here. The Imperial ambassador and the Luling magistrate were surrounded together in a carriage. The soldier that had gone to report had needed to go straight to find Magistrate Fan Yuezhen. When the feast had just disbanded, Magistrate Fan had drunk himself to a stupor, and had been in the middle of heading back to the prefectural bureau. However, when he got to its main gate, he saw a patrolling soldier come to report something, out of breath from running. He had said that the Imperial ambassador had been ambushed on the way back, with the Luling magistrate in the same carriage. No matter how drunk Magistrate Fan was, he had immediately mostly sobered up upon hearing this, and could not rush off fast enough. His aides were smart and had quickly stopped him, saying that it would be useless for him to go like this, to say nothing of the fact that he could not even be saving himself, let alone the ambassador. He needed to hurry to get a rescue team. Feeling that the remark made sense, he had immediately changed trajectory to go find Mill Arch 10 at Jian's Mill Arch post. The post had no relationship to the Chenghua but instead being a local garrison affiliated to the department of Jiangxi's commanding envoy. Even if it had no connection to the Chenghua, as soon as it heard Magistrate Fan say that the court's imperial ambassador had been attacked in Jian's territory, it had to send people to rescue him. Because it had been reported that the foes had exceptional skill and had many people, Mill Arch 10 had specifically brought a small squadron carrying firearms. That build-up of twists and turns had then caused a lot of delay. Thankfully, Shi Ming's group had held out long enough, as they knew that if anything happened to Tang Fan, that would be equivalent to them failing to protect an imperial ambassador. Even if Wang Zhi didn't reproach them, they would still suffer punishment from the court. They therefore did all they could to block the onslaught, their bodies having long become riddled in wounds. Their opponents were not doing any better, of course. All 8 of them were more or less wounded. Even though their target was the one in the carriage, they also needed to take care to not be captured or get their identities revealed. Thus, the instant they saw a large group of soldiers rush over, they knew that the most favorable opportunity for killing him had passed and it would be difficult for them to find another. One of them, who seemed to be the leader, was seen to make a hand gesture, and the other 7 swiftly flew in the opposite direction from where the soldiers were coming. After they withdrew a certain distance, they turned and ran forth, figures quickly vanishing into the vast night. Lu Lingzi had wanted to give chase but was held back by Shi Ming. "Do you want to die?" Taking into consideration the enemy's skills, they were roughly a bit higher than the skills of Shi Ming's group, so this confrontation had left all of them injured, 2 amongst them heavily so. The opposing 8 had also been wounded but they had only been light injuries. If Lu Lingzi caught up with them, he would most likely never come back. He had no choice but to listen reluctantly. The soldiers had since scrambled over. Seeing their sorry states, Magistrate Fan was aghast. "What's going on, Sir Tang? Are you all right?" "I am." Tang Fan disembarked the carriage, followed by Ji Min. "This is Mill Arch 10, from Jian's Mill Arch post," Magistrate Fan introduced. After hearing the news, this humble official rushed to call him over. His word held no lack of wanting to incur merits for himself. Such conduct was frequently seen in bureaucracy. Normally, Tang Fan would be in the mood to play polite with him but right now, he only cupped his hands towards Mill Arch 10. "Many thanks, Mill Arch 10. I will come to visit and thank you personally one day for this favor I've received." Mill Arch 10 was wiser than Magistrate Fan. Seeing that the ones at Tang Fan's side were moderately injured, he said, "This humble official knows some doctors that specialize in traumatic external injuries. If you need them, I will send people to call on them." Not being overly polite, Tang Fan accepted this without hesitation. "Then I will have to burden you, Mill Arch 10. "No need to be so polite, sir," the other quickly answered. "This happening in Jian's territory is something I cannot shirk responsibility for. Please, allow this humble official to escort you back." Not to be left behind, Magistrate Fan also said, "I will escort you too, sir." Shi Ming's group was injured, 2 were already on the verge of collapse. Tang Fan didn't refuse this, having Shi Ming help his 2 injured subordinates onto the carriage, then borrowing a few horses from Mill Arch 10. Those of the group who could still move, rode back. Those assassins definitely weren't going to return, so being personally escorted by Mill Arch 10 and Magistrate Fan, Tang Fan's group safely reached the post house. Aside from the 2 heavily injured ones, Shi Ming's group had a bunch of cut wounds on their bodies. Lu Lingzi had a slash on his arm deep enough to show bone. It had been difficult for him to stay silent the whole time. After returning, he had haphazardly torn a strip of cloth to staunch the bleeding. It wasn't until doctors came and were about to apply medicine on him that everyone saw how deep the wound was. They had been injured protecting Tang Fan, but strictly speaking, that had been their job in the first place. Even so, Tang Fan didn't take that at all for granted, instead giving up his own room for the heavily injured patients to stay in, and personally watching the doctors check pulses and question Shi Ming's group extensively about the state of their wounds. Once he learned that no one was in life-threatening danger, he ordered them to rest well, then also instructed the post-house workers to cook them easy-to-digest meat congee tomorrow. Seeing this, even though it didn't show on their faces, Shi Ming's group was a bit moved at their hearts. Many officials could put on superficial appearances and many more would disdain to do even that. Even though they were described with nice-sounding words of martial experts, in reality, they were really just lackeys to be ordered around, either wandering the world or tossing themselves into bureaucracy. Even as military generals, their positions were not as high as the civil officials. Shi Ming's group had thought that with Tang Fan's status, he had to be the type that looked down his nose at everyone. They themselves had also had some ideas about being dispatched by Wang Ji to defend a weak civil official, but now that something had happened, Tang Fan's actions had caused their views to greatly change. No matter what he was actually thinking, putting on such a thoughtful and meticulous display alone was not being cold to them. A session or two had passed since the injured were settled in. Magistrate Fan and Mill Arch Tan had been sent away by Tang Fan, leaving only Ji Min in the post house. Since the main courtyard was given to Shi Ming and the rest, Tang Fan moved into the side courtyard. Even though the post house workers had made some temporary arrangements, the conditions were definitely a little worse there. "Forgive me, Brother Ziming," he apologized. "Look at how you were nearly injured from the mess tonight, and now I left you to dry for over half the day, unable to speak to you alone." Ji Min waved him off. "It's fine. Rest tomorrow, too. There'll be no need to rise early." With that, he sighed. "Still, the fact that this happened tonight is fishy. I envied you for getting such quick promotions, yet I never expected that your spot would be so perilous. No wonder you had to bring a few martial artists with you. If you didn't have them, would you not be in even more danger?" Tang Fan smiled. "Things like this aren't frequent, really. I never encountered them in Suzhou. He actually had, but his opponents had used a beauty as a honey trap and money for bribes. As was said, alcohol is a drug perforating the gut, sex is a blade cutting away bone, that could be seen as a different form of danger." Hearing this, Ji Min's worries were plain on his face. "With young Master Lu and the others injured, how will you be safe these few days? Should I send some county bailiffs over? Thank you for your goodwill, but if the enemy's skills are the same as the ones from tonight, more people will likely do nothing. You may as well tell Mill Arch Tan to send me a fire-armed squadron," Tang Fan jokingly declined. Ji Min knew that he was speaking the truth, shaking his head. "It's me that's useless. When I heard you were coming, I was really happy, thinking that when I met you this time around, we would definitely have a good time reminiscing. I didn't expect that you would encounter assassins upon reaching Luling's territory. I, as a guardian official, have neglected my duty. This has nothing to do with you, don't be ashamed. Can we not still reminisce now? Speaking of which, I've been wanting to ask since I saw you, did you take part in the metropolitan exams afterwards? Why didn't you come find me when you were in the capital? I didn't return to take the test again. After I returned to my hometown, I met a rich merchant. He appreciated my hard studies in trying to improve myself, so he funded me in facilitating a relationship with the Ministry of Revenue, which got me the position of Luling deputy. Later on, when the Luling magistrate ended his term and transferred, he recommended me to his superiors, and I filled in his spot. In this dynasty, provincial honorates could act as officials. Tang Fan helping He Lin become a mentor of Mayun County was because of the latter being a provincial honorate, but with Ji Min's pride, Tang Fan had always believed that he would not rest until he passed into being a palace honorate. Seeming to see what he was thinking, Ji Min smiled in self-mockery. My mother was ill at home, then. I just wanted to get a post to earn money so that I wouldn't need to worry about my elders. Don't worry much about it. It wasn't that I didn't want to go look for you, it's just that at that time, you had just gained a foothold in Shuntian Prefecture. Even if you wanted to help, you would probably feel helpless. Bystanders cannot get involved in such matters. I had to resolve it myself. That's why I didn't inform you, so that you didn't get hung up on it. No wonder I wrote you a few successive letters yet never got a reply. You had to have been away from home, then. Ji Min sighed. Yes. After coming to Luling, I was so busy, I couldn't get the spare time to return to my hometown. It's really very unfilial of me. Officials of this dynasty rarely had vacation time, and it was excessively difficult for officials at the bottom rung to get any. Ji Min's situation was unsurprising. In the Great Ming, a vast number of officials had come across much of the same. Runking, thinking of that day, you and I formed the great wish to both get our names on the golden roll. But, not only did I not continue with my efforts, I became a deserter in order to take a shortcut. I know that it isn't the proper way. I don't like hearing you say that. Tang Fan cut him off. Whatever is called the proper way or the crooked way has nothing to do with imperial exams or honors. When it comes to how an acting official presides over the common folk, the proper way is being generous. As is known, at the country's founding, most of the court officials came from the Imperial College, not from taking the exams. There was no lack of meritorious officials amongst them. Did those predecessors not take the proper way? Ah! Zimming, you think too much, and have too heavy a load on your mind. As long as you remain as you are, we will forever be good friends. Ji Min's heart was warm, and he felt it was unsuitable to say anything, bowing his head to cover up how touched he was. When his emotions had gradually calmed, he asked. At today's feast, Su Bin was always targeting you. Do you know why? I'm also a bit perplexed by that. Do you know any inside information? A thing or two? He wanted to continue on, yet a knock came from the door. Tang Fan wanted to get up and open it, but Ji Min pushed him down and did so himself. The one standing outside was not an assassin, of course, but Lu Lingzi, with the majority of his arm wrapped up. He smiled giddily. Brother Tang, I heard that you two were speaking by candlelight, so I came over. Did I bother you? Tang Fan creased his brow. You're injured yet are getting up and doing things instead of resting? Don't make a fuss. I can't sleep, the wound keeps aching. Just let me sit here for a bit. His cutesy tone made him impossible to refuse. Furthermore, whenever he thought of how the other had been wounded for him, Tang Fan couldn't harden his heart to reject him. The issue here was that Shi Ming and the rest were all resting in their rooms, not running off to play coy here, while Lu Lingzi couldn't sit still. Apparently, he's still too young and have a childlike temper. No wonder Huayan wanted him to follow me and temper himself, Tang Fan thought. Even thinking so, his heart softened up. All right. Just sit here and say when you're uncomfortable. Lu Lingzi happily agreed, moved a chair over in Tang Fan's direction using his uninjured arm, then sat near him. Looking up to see Ji Min staring at him, he automatically returned his stare with a slightly provocative look, causing the other to be a bit taken aback. End chapter. The 14th year of Chenghua. Chapter 125. Sui Zhou isn't in this chapter. Su Bin was someone he had just met personally for the first time. Needless to say, it was a fact that they had no prior contact. Even if he held a grudge, he was a merchant, and regardless of how much money he had, he wouldn't dare to confront a court official. And yet, he had still tried to make him lose face and make a stumbling block for an imperial ambassador. Magistrate Fan had previously introduced Su Bin as a relative of Nanjing's right assistant minister of appointments. That was a bit of a distanced connection. If just anyone shared a hometown or clan with an official, then they could also wave that tiger's skin as a banner by claiming a connection. That was why Tang Fan had guessed that Su Bin's status might have something else to it. Indeed, Ji Min resolved his suspicions. Su Bin's former backer was Minister Chenji. After the other stepped down, he reportedly gave up the majority of his wealth and relied on his connection to the capital to build a connection with the head of the cabinet, Wanan, and give him all his salt permits for the next 3 years. Saying so, he shook his head, half joking. Everyone says that Chenji meeting with poor luck was because of you. You caused Su Bin to have no choice but to donate most of his wealth to head cabinet Wan. Tell me, should he hate you, or not? Tang Fan saw the light. So that's what it was. I saw how he was looking at me like I owed him several tens of thousands of taels when he tried to embarrass me every time. If he has the big tree that is Wan and backing him, it's no wonder he had no scruples. Right. Runking, you don't need to fear him now, but a vile man like that is best left unprovoked. If you offend a noble, they will scold you a bit to your face at most, but if you offend a villain, they will conspire behind your back. You're saying that the case I'm investigating is likely related to him. I don't know for sure, but there is one thing. On the eve of the institutional exams, Su Bin's son, Su Sui, had a verbal altercation with the deceased scholar, Lin Zhen, at an academy. They had both participated in this year's institutional exams. After the list was revealed, Lin Zhen was in the top 20 but Su Sui wasn't. That was actually a very important clue. How did you know about that altercation? Tang Fan wondered. Ji Min shook his head. The Balas Ho Academy they were at is the most famous academy in Jian. One little gust that stirs the grasses can spread to every alley. There had been a big disturbance then. When the two sides begun to fight, I was nearly called over to stop it. Supposedly, the headmaster later showed up to calm them down, as had the trouble was reported to me, the scholars would be disgraced, and it might affect their future honors. I understand. This is all very useful, thank you. The day is late, I'll have to wrong you with staying overnight. Ji Min huffed out a laugh. Wrong me how? I'm the one that set this post house up. I still have a lot of things to discuss with you, so isn't it best for you and I to get some shut-eye together tonight? Before Tang Fan could say anything, the sufficiently mute Lu Lingzi reacted quicker than all others. Brother Tang, my wound really hurts. He hadn't made a peep this whole time, most of his weight leaned against Tang Fan. The latter had thought that he was asleep. That unexpected utterance really startling one into a jump. Tang Fan turned his head to side-eye him. Go back and rest, then. Lu Lingzi smiled. Can you help me up? I can't walk. Tang Fan was someone that could be persuaded, not forced. If one was defiant, he might not stand for it, but if one politely asked, he might compromise. Sui Zhou had long figured his character out, and another person had now, too. If Commander Sui, who was so far away, learned of this, what would he feel? Ji Min laughed. Young Master Lu, you're not that young anymore, yet you still have a childlike personality. No wonder Runking said he sees you as a little brother. That just made Lu Lingzi rather unhappy, unable to disclaim himself from having the personality of a pampered son. His hand refused to loosen the hold it had on Tang Fan's sleeve, having much of an air of I want you to help me. Seeing this, Ji Min felt nothing. Ever since his failure at the exams, he had long been seeing instances of coldness and warmth in human relationships, and came to know many human expressions and personalities. Lu Lingzi's act didn't bother him even a little. Runking, you must be tired from running around today. How about I take young Master Lu back? No need. Thank you for your goodwill, brother Ming. I'll send him off, so you just rest well, and we'll chat again tomorrow. With Tang Fan having said that, Ji Min couldn't argue. Nodding with a smile, he acquiesced, very well. The three of them were staying in one courtyard, which took only a few steps to traverse. Lu Lingzi had been able to come over and hear the two chatting with his injury, so there was no reason that he couldn't take those few steps back. Tang Fan figured that he likely had something to say to him alone. Granting him what he wanted, he led him back to his room. Lu Lingzi was legitimately tired, but he still preserved his spirits. As soon as he entered his room, he couldn't resist flopping down onto the bed. Tang Fan felt a bit heartsick and guilty seeing this, chiding, anything you want to say can wait until tomorrow. If you had been sleeping here to begin with, you wouldn't be so exhausted. The other gave him a weary smile. I heard Eunuch Wang speak of the White Lotus Society before and I didn't take it to heart, thinking that with people like us by your side protecting you, nothing would happen. Only now do I know that I couldn't have been more wrong. A few unknown bandits at night put us in such a sorry state. If there were any more people, you might now be. I'm terrified just thinking of it. That's why I can't let you go alone somewhere I can't see. Tang Fan was amused. This is a post house. What's going to happen? Don't think too much. It's good to be careful, but you can't be on guard against enemies hiding around every corner. How else are you going to sleep at night? Lu Lingzi grabbed his sleeve. Brother, can't you sleep here tonight? I need to see you to be at ease, or I'm going to go stand guard outside your room. It's your choice, but don't tell me that you have to heart to make me spend the night outside. Tang Fan really had no way to handle him. Let's go to my room, then. The bed there is a bit bigger. This one can't hold two people. Lu Lingzi made a happy noise. He had limped out of unwellness a moment before, yet now immediately leapt out of bed like he wasn't injured at all. Despite being June, it wasn't too warm at night. The cooling mats spread out on the bed were quite refreshing, and there was just enough room for two men to lie down if they don't do too much tossing and turning. However, Lu Lingzi had an excited energy for some reason, and he would not stop wriggling like a caterpillar. Tang Fan had to reach out and stop him. You were sitting with Shen Si all night. Did you find anything out? Remembering his proper business now that he was reminded of it, Lu Lingzi flushed with shame and quickly coughed to cover up his awkwardness. A little bit. I think that young Master Shen is a really big moron. Tang Fan raised a brow. Why do you say that? Lu Lingzi smiled. I had looked at his act during the banquet and believed that he intentionally showed stupidity, but a few sentences in, I learned that he's been relying on his father's status to wreak havoc for a few years. There's been no huge mistake that he hasn't made, an unceasing amount of minor offenses, and no progress in his studies. It was out of anger that Shen Kengzia brought his son everywhere with him. If he really was faking it, there would be no need to hide it from his own father, nor for so many years. Tang Fan shook his head. Shen Kengzia is old-fashioned in personality, but he has quite some knowledge. Having a son like must have been bad karma from his previous life. The father was implicated in the case and needed to avoid suspicion, yet the son had still openly attended a feast, and one for welcoming an Imperial ambassador, no less. Those not in the know believed that he had come to bribe the Imperial ambassador on his father's orders. If Shen Kengzia knew of this, he would likely rage to death. With a son like that, it was little wonder as to why he wanted to bring him around and keep an eye on him. If he wasn't with him, Shen Si might cause problems. I'm about the same age as him. Don't you think I'm a lot cuter than him by comparison, brother Tang? Lu Lingzi asked with a grin. Tang Fan rolled his eyes at him. Your aspirations are pretty low. You might as well try to compare to me instead of actually comparing yourself to him. Refined and outstandingly handsome, Tang Fan did not err on the sides of boyish or womanly in looks. Throwing out an eye roll naturally couldn't show any sense of loveliness or style, either. An eye roll was just an eye roll. In the eyes of those fond of him, however, he looked good no matter what. Lu Lingzi immediately asked him, like a pest, "Brother Tang, tell me how you were when you were a teen, then." Tang Fan didn't jump on the opportunity, however. "Did you hurt your arm or your head? Why does it seem like you suddenly became 10 years younger, even learning how to play koi? It's late, behave and sleep now." With that, he turned so his back faced Lu Lingzi. The latter wanted to place his hand on his waist, but he feared that Tang Fan would get angry and turn hostile, having a villain's heart but not a villain's guts. He had to resentfully stare at the back in front of him, thoughts turning rampantly, but because he was too worn out, he unwittingly fell asleep. No words were said for a night. The day after, Tang Fan did not rise early, since there had been an assassination last night and he had been busy for most of the night before he could sleep. When he did get up, he heard from a post-house person that Magistrate Fan dropped by, and was now waiting outside to meet with him. The magistrate had been waiting most of the morning. Too afraid to rouse Tang Fan with noise, he hadn't even allowed anyone to make a report until Tang Fan woke up by himself. Seeing Tang Fan walk in, properly dressed, he hurriedly got up and bowed. "This humble official greets you, sir." "No need to be so polite, Magistrate Fan. Why did no one wake me up when something happened?" Magistrate Fan laughed dryly, as how could he have dared? "I am here specifically to apologize to you, sir. After the assassination attempt on the streets last night, I was immensely shocked, and together with Mil Arch Tan, I launched an investigation to search everywhere in the city overnight. Now that people have been sent to hurry the search, we must be close to finding those villains." Despite saying as much, he knew himself that the chances of finding anyone were beyond slim. They hadn't been able to catch them last night, so wanting to catch them now was very troublesome. If the assassins had assumed other identities, when the soldiers searched, they would definitely only go into the homes of civilians, which missed many clues and was no different than trying to find needles on the seafloor. As a local official, Magistrate Fan bore this responsibility, but Tang Fan had personally experienced those assassins' might. They had clearly been prepared, and had been able to retreat intact, given that they had shelters in the city that they could hide in any time. They could disguise themselves as ordinary civilians and leave the city at daybreak. Who would even find them? For that reason, he didn't lay too much responsibility on the magistrate for investigating this. "Don't blame yourself. You have already fulfilled your duties. No one had anticipated this, in any case, so there's no need to speak more on it. However, from now on, some more caution is needed. I hope nothing like this happens a second time." Magistrate Fan shivered. "This humble official understands that lesson, sir, and I acknowledge my wrongs. Your subordinates were all injured. I specially borrowed a few skilled soldiers from Mil Arch Tan for you to send out. What is your opinion on this?" His behavior completely differed from Chen Luan's. Chen Luan had relied on his supporter to look down upon Tang Fan, while Fan Yuezhen feared making mistakes and being reproached by the Imperial ambassador. His black cap no longer ensured thereafter, so he was fawning on Tang Fan to the best of his abilities out of fear that his service would be lacking. Tang Fan thought about it. Now that 2 of the 4 bodyguards that Wang Zhi had given him were seriously injured, the able subordinates at his side were greatly diminished, so he nodded. "Arrange for them to stand guard around the post house, then. My apologies for troubling you." A superior willing to receive his goodwill and not express an intention to look into his faults made Magistrate Fan delighted, and he mentally wiped off his sweat. "This is within my duties. It is what should be done." After he left, Lu Lingzi came in. "Brother Tang, everyone he found are soldiers from the army. I could probably say that their abilities are limited, and can even say that they can't top mine. Aren't you resting? Why did you get up again?" Lu Lingzi laughed. "Even you're up, So how could I keep sleeping? I said before that wherever you go, I'm going with you. How could I defend you, otherwise? I don't want a repeat of what happened last night. His complexion was a bit wan but his energy was decent. The youth had recovered quickly, the severity of his wounds being lighter than Shi Ming's groups. As long as he didn't move his injured arm, there would generally be no issue to speak of. Young Master Lu is right. Shi Ming and Han Jin came in from outside, picking the conversation up. They had been the least injured of the four last night. Sir, that group that failed to succeed last night will certainly try to make a comeback. You must have people around you. Tang Fan furrowed his brow. But all of your injuries. Shi Ming smiled brightly. We have no internal injuries and can walk around. You don't need to worry, sir. Since they were so insistent, Tang Fan couldn't object anymore. In that case, when breakfast is done, Shi Ming and Han Jin will follow me to visit Chenghua. Yuking, you go ask Magistrate Fan for Lin Zhen's corpse, then find a coroner to identify his cause of death. Lin Zhen is the scholar who hanged himself and wrote a manifest in blood before he died. Every day this case went uninvestigated was a day the institutional exams could not be conducted again. Because this case involved the county honored title of many scholars, if their accusations of cheating were confirmed, then Lin Zhen had senselessly died, killing himself to avoid the crime. Those scholars would never have their honors resumed, either. If it became verified that Chenghua had cruelly misjudged the case and made up false charges, and the scholars hadn't cheated, his career would be over. This was a very simple proposition and how the case should be resolved was all in Tang Fan's hands alone. If Chenghua was any other official, even if he wasn't guilty, he would certainly rush to make nice to Tang Fan by now, lest his neglect led Tang Fan to anger and caused him to be partial towards the scholars. However, Chenghua did not do that from yesterday to today. He did not show up nor had he even gotten someone to come over and greet Tang Fan. It was unclear whether he was overly open-minded, or way too self-confident. Shi Ming and Han Jin simultaneously agreed but Lu Lingzi was a bit reluctant. Brother Tang, how about I come along with them? Tang Fan pat his head. Do what you're told. Lu Lingzi imperceptibly held in a smirk, content with his place in life. Notices needed to be delivered before paying a visit but Tang Fan was an imperial ambassador that didn't need to be constrained by that rule. He brought Shi Ming and Han Jin straight to where Chenghua was staying. The city had two post houses. One was where Tang Fan was, and the other was currently occupied by Chenghua. As the Jiangxi's Consul of Education, his permanent residence was in Nanjing Prefecture, and he always stayed at post houses when he patrolled the various prefectures in the provinces. Now that he was deeply involved in a case, he didn't leave his door rashly, naturally being there when Tang Fan came. Both of them were in the third rank. Due to Tang Fan's status, Chenghua had to be especially half-courteous toward him, which Tang Fan did not reject. After they took their seats, he spoke no glib, getting straight to the point. I just came here, and the only sources for this case are court reports and rumors. Please describe everything from start to finish, Consultant Shen. Chenghua began to explain. Truthfully, this matter was not that complicated. Ever since the Tang Dynasty, imperial exams had been used to employ scholars. Some had then begun to cheat in order to snatch every opportunity, and since this dynasty had developed to the realm of having great achievements, many test takers would have no scruples in acquiring honors. Hiding tiny cheat sheets in clothes or hiding things in one's hat or solace were too lowbrow. Not only was it easy to detect but one's future prospects would be ruined. So many intelligent people had thought of a way to cheat from the source, such as bribing the evaluating officials. Evaluators were human, too. Humans had desires, meaning they had weaknesses. However, after the Song Dynasty, exam papers would be retranscribed before it would be presented to the grading officials. No one would be able to tell them apart from their handwriting, as even their name would be concealed and would only be revealed after the results were made public. For that reason, telling a grading officials one's name ahead of time so that they could pick their exam out was a useless method, unless you could get the test questions straight from the overseeing officials. Still, the world had successive generations of talents, so a new way to cheat would quickly appear, such as making an appointment with the grading officials in advance to agree on a code word. This time around in the institutional exams, great achievement had been a code, which the exam takers had thought hard about how to cram into their papers. When the evaluators had seen it, they would understand that this was the agreed upon code word, and that exam paper needed to pass. The last exams had been an archetypal code word cheat, but Chenghua had not detected it beforehand. He had overseen many exams, with Jian Prefecture being only one of his posts, so this was not at all strange, when one considered his limited energy. After the evaluators had laid out all the ranks of the graded exams, he had only briefly schemed over the first couple of papers, felt that there was no issue, and agreed to announce the roll. He hadn't expected that something big would happen. Including the deceased Lin Zhen's exam papers, great achievement had shown up in 16 people's papers in total. Chenhua's interrogation of the evaluators had yielded nothing. He had gathered those 16 together and had them retake tests, which had resulted in many poked holes. On that basis, he had believed that the 16 had indeed cheated, so their honors needed to be stripped. They were never to be employed by the government. That had pretty much been a bolt from a blue sky to that group of honors-obsessed scholars, and had subsequently made Lin Zhen hang himself. Hearing all this, Tang Fan asked, "Since you re-examined the 16, you presumably still have their papers?" "I do." "Can I look at them?" Those papers were important evidences, so Chenghua still had them safe. He found them immediately and together with the 16 papers from the institutional exam, handed them all to Tang Fan. Tang Fan read them, then wondered, Consul Shen, Lin Zhen was at the same level in both of his papers, with no huge discrepancy. The last-minute re-examination afterwards is not any inferior. Clearly, these are articles made with real abilities. How so? Chenghua countered. The two papers were not that far apart in difference, but that doesn't mean that he didn't cheat. Great achievement appeared in his previous paper. Clearly, he had been looking for easy advantages at the time, and with those words, he would have extra protection. Too bad that his plot was exposed. That was reasonable, of course. It couldn't be said that he was wrong. However, if any other official of education had run into that situation, had they found that a test taker was similar in both papers after the second exam, they would generally choose to let those people have an out. Those that did indeed have a great difference in their post level would be expelled, and a blind eye would be turned to those otherwise. Because scholar officials were in charge of public opinions nowadays, and all scholar officials had been students before. The emperor appeared to be up on high and solely reigning supreme, yet he actually wasn't alone in governing the realm, ruling it together with the civil officials. Thus, he was a little more lenient towards them. A story had passed around some area once, where one year, owing to a natural disaster, the amount of people participating in the institutional exams had been much smaller compared to previous years. In the end, the number of people getting county honorate had been higher, with only 5 falling off the roll. The rest of those who had passed had sent a joint petition upwards, requesting that the head examiner pass the 5 that had fallen off in order to send a good message. The examiner had believed that to make sense, so he had admitted the 5 others. This event had later spread amongst the literary circle, and no one ever said that the head examiner had been wrong, and instead all praising him. Hence, Chenhua's conduct, compared to common practices of education officials, was quite a bit too harsh. Of course, it couldn't be said that he was wrong because of that, since, just like he had said, those 16 really were suspicious. There might really had been people able to pass with their actual talents but felt that their chances of passing would be greater with a code word, following the example only to end up in a tragic state. Tang Fan's investigation really had two key points to it. One was whether the 16 should be ousted altogether, and the second was to see if Lin Zhen's death had been forced by Shen Kengxiu's actions. After coming to Jian, I heard some rumors related to you, Consul Shen. Shen Kengxiu creased his brow. What rumors? That Lin Zhen's father had a personal grudge with you from the past. Bunch of drivel. Shen Kengxiu's reaction was quite severe. He smacked the table. Who was it that blurted that to you, Censor Tang? Lin Zhen and the rest was proven to have cheated. I expelled them out of a will for fair play. How could any bit of slander be tolerated? Seeing him flush red from irritation, Tang Fan said, no need to be angry. Even if they're rumors, it's my responsibility to ask after them to understand. Also, after the roll was released, the motives behind those who had brewed up the cheating rumors are extremely suspicious. Did you ever look into that? Shen Kengxiu had not. By the time he had learned the news, everything had already turned into a huge fuss. He had been occupied with stamping out the fire, so how could he have been of the mind to look for the one who had started it? Hearing Tang Fan's question, his face darkened. No. Then did you question those evaluators again? How did they get into contact with the test takers for cheating? After I did, they refused to admit anything. Tang Fan frowned. Had they not admitted anything, or had he not thought to ask? This cheating was obviously impossible to do with the exam takers' efforts alone. The cooperation of evaluators was essential. How would the code word come about in the first place, otherwise? Seeing Tang Fan's frowning face, Shen Kengxiu was very unhappy. He had searched inside him and concluded that he had done nothing wrong in his handling of this event, and it was only because of the mess with Lin Zhen's death that he had ended up the object of public criticism. Now that the court had sent an Imperial ambassador to handle things, he had no comment, but seeing that Tang Fan was young in age yet using a tone of voice like he had come to arrest him as a criminal, Shen Kengxiu automatically became angry. Excuse me for asking, but how many evaluators were in the institutional exams, and what were their respective origins? 5 altogether, all headmasters at Jian's academies. Where are they now? I want to meet with them. They all went home. Tang Fan couldn't take this anymore. As they're involved in this case, all of them are suspicious. You very clearly knew that the court was going to send people down to investigate, yet you let them go home? What is your reasoning? Shen Kengxiu grunted. If you're dissatisfied, you can always call them back for questioning. Tang Fan was especially enraged by his uncooperative attitude. This man was obviously the one who made a mess, yet he had the audacity to look wronged. What right did he have to try to intimidate anyone? I'll be making a report of this, he said, expression sunken. Meaning, I'm going to complain about you. However, Shen Kengxiu replied, in a stuffy voice, do what you please. Their discussion ended unhappily. Knowing Shen Kengxiu's temper well, Tang Fan didn't bother adding words to a bad situation. He stood with a bang, prepared to brush out his sleeves and leave, only for him to see someone scramble in from outside with a panicked look. Master, Master! It's terrible! Upon seeing Tang Fan, his voice stopped dead, yet the expression on his face didn't detract, seeming quite odd. Noticing that the other not saying anything meant that he didn't want him to hear, Tang Fan was disinterested in remaining here. He said a farewell to Shen Kengxiu, then strode away with Shi Ming and Han Jin. Shen Kengxiu never rose to send him off, remaining seated. The second they left, Shi Ming said to Tang Fan, Sir, his servant had an off expression just now. Tang Fan nodded. He had also noticed that the man had been overly shocked. Had something only minor occurred, he wouldn't have been like that. Go ask around for what happened. Go find the 5 evaluators and some of the scholars that had cheated, too. I have to question them. You can go to Magistrate Fan, he'll have to help. Shi Ming affirmed all of that. If there really had been a cheating scheme, the evaluators' role in it was crucial, yet Chenghua had let them go without a single word. It was hard to not be suspicious. Even though Chenghua had made it evident that he wasn't going to cooperate, Tang Fan didn't believe that he wouldn't be able to do anything without him. This case hadn't been complicated at the start, yet with those related to it nowhere to be seen, there was no way to start on it. Shi Ming accepted his orders and quickly went to find Magistrate Fan. Tang Fan brought Han Jin back to rest, but Lu Lingzi had already returned. Brother Tang, Lin Fengyuan said that Li Zhen's body has since been buried. End chapter.